Well, you've asked for it, and this week you're going to get it. A week of supernatural, a week of miracles, a week where angels come to people, secrets of the supernatural. You don't want to miss 1 minute of it. See how one man was rescued from almost certain death when 2 angels lifted the truck that was crushing his body.
Well, we're also going to be taking your questions about angels in our chat room. So if there's something you've always wondered about angels, you can ask Pat today. All you need to do is log on to our chat room at cbn.com.
Well, first of the news, the situation in Japan remains bleak 3 months after the earthquake and tsunami sparked a nuclear crisis. More than 90,000 evacuees are trying to cope in the aftermath. But as Charlene Israel reports, Christians in Japan are reaching out despite the danger to themselves.
Despite the danger of deadly radiation, workers at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear plant still come to work. For at least 7 men, it's a daily test of their faith in God's divine power to protect them from harm. Akira Sato is their pastor.
Some go there bravely, but they are also fearful. But they have faith in God, and our church is supporting them with prayer.
American missionary Scott Eaton used to teach English at the church. It's just a few miles away from the plant. He tells of one plant worker who sought refuge at the church's shelter after the earthquake and tsunami.
In the time that he was with the church, he became a Christian and felt that God was telling him to go back and share this message with his coworkers.
Many members of the church and the community evacuated to the outskirts of Tokyo. This group of refugees channeled their despair and anger into their drums. Yokoyama is the leader of the group. He says the drums are therapy.
Everything I had, my business, my house I built with my own hands. My family and I had to leave everything behind. When I am at home, I begin to panic. But when I am playing, I have happiness even for a short while.
While Pastor Sato's church moved far away from their community, many evacuees stayed close to home, even though radiation levels are dangerously high. Here, a Christian church is helping some 2,500 refugees by giving life starter kits. Each kit includes basic needs like kitchenware, appliances, and even some furnishings. Pastor Toyami Senga of Grace Community Service says the kits bring hope to the evacuees.
We met a mother and her daughter, and both are single moms. They contemplated on committing suicide together. But when we met them, they said they realized God is alive. As we meet the needs of the refugees and pray for them, they asked why we do this. And we tell them the Bible says we need to love in action.
Charlene Israel, CBN News.
That great love in action, despite the fact they might well have radiation poisoning, they stay in there to minister to people. It's just a beautiful story. And these things are showing faith in action. Well, Wendy Griffith has the rest of our top stories in the CBN Newsroom. Wendy.
Pat, religious groups are demanding an explanation from NBC for omitting the words "under God" from the Pledge of Allegiance aired during the U.S. Open. NBC has issued 2 apologies so far. The broadcast began with a clip of children reciting the oath. "Under God" was edited out not just once, but twice. Take a look.
I pledge allegiance to the flag. Freeze down! Of the United States of America. And to the republic for which it stands, one nation. Order! With liberty and justice for all.
Viewers immediately noticed the cut and started posting complaints on Facebook and Twitter. Later in the broadcast, NBC apologized for the omission, saying the network didn't intend to offend anyone. NBC Sports also issued a written apology Monday, calling it a bad decision. But today on the CBN News Channel, Jordan Sekulow from the American Center for Law and Justice said NBC's apology is not enough.
You know, what's unbelievable, in this apology, the one on air and then the written statement, they never even say what they did wrong. So during the whole broadcast, the final day of the U.S. Open, where people are watching around the world, and this was a great way to show America to the world, but when they deleted Under God and then they apologized 3 hours later, they never said what words were removed.
Jordan Sekulow is encouraging viewers to sign on to the ACLJ's letter of protest. Well, the Supreme Court will decide whether churches and ministries have a right to hire or fire employees who disagree with their religious beliefs. The American Center for Law and Justice has filed a brief defending the rights of ministries. They argue if a church or a school associated with a church makes an employment decision, government agencies should not interfere. ACLJ Chief Counsel Jay Sekulow says, quote, "Government clearly has no business choosing priests, rabbis, or ministers, nor should government agents be ordering church schools to hire or retain teachers the school does not want." The Supreme Court will likely hear arguments in the fall. Americans are giving more to charity than in recent years. A new report shows charitable donations jumped by at least $10 billion last year. The Giving USA Foundation reports $291 billion in donations in 2010. Most of the increase is from corporations. Individual giving grew only slightly, but those donations made up about 73% of all gifts. Well, turning overseas now, America has reached a major milestone in the Afghanistan war. Troops are set to begin coming home next month. President Obama will announce just how many will be homeward bound in a much-anticipated speech tomorrow. Ephraim Graham has more.
The president is still in the process of finalizing his decision on the pace and scope of the drawdown that will begin in July of 2011.
The decision is a balancing act for the president.
I feel like we have the initiative, we have the momentum.
Maintaining a troop level that allows the military to maintain its momentum in Afghanistan, even as polls show more than half of Americans say the war is not worth the cost.
If we accelerate withdrawal right now because we're war weary, we're going to lose this war.
I think that when you look at the situation on the ground in Afghanistan, it's bleak.
Right now, there are more than 100,000 U.S. troops in Afghanistan, and diplomatic relations with the country are tense.
When I hear some of your leaders call us occupiers and likened to the brutal enemies of the Afghan people, my people in turn, they're filled with confusion and they grow weary of our effort here.
The biggest question, what will become of the country once the U.S. pulls out? Afghan President Hamid Karzai says the United States is already talking with the Taliban. President Obama recently said he is open to talks, but only under certain conditions.
The Taliban would have to cut all ties to al-Qaeda, renounce violence, and they would have to respect the Afghan constitution.
Ephraim Graham, CBN News.
The president's decision on withdrawing troops isn't the only big change on the table. He's losing senior U.S. leaders who have years of experience managing the war. Defense Secretary Robert Gates is retiring next week, and David Petraeus, the top U.S. general in Kabul, is being reassigned to the CIA. Pat, that's big news.
I, for one, am sick of this Afghan thing. I will question whether or not we should have gotten so deeply involved in it. I think the government of Hamid Karzai is corrupt. I think there's corruption all over the country. The government in Kabul has really no authority throughout the country. There are warlords all over the place. The opium trade is rife. It is a stinking mess. And the thing is, though, the Taliban, what the president said, that they will renounce ties to al-Qaeda, that's nonsense. The Taliban are ultra Wahhabi adherents. They are the ones who used to beat the women for having their dresses a little bit too short. They're the ones who didn't let women go to school. They're the ones who shot and murdered people because of adultery and maybe blasphemy or whatever. I mean, it was just disgusting what they did. They enforced a reign of terror that's every bit as bad as the Nazis. And to say, well, they're going to renounce ties to the al-Qaeda, come off it. That's nonsense. And what they're saying is, we're going to wait for you to pull out. We'll take it easy. We're going to back off, and we're going to make nice until you leave. And as soon as you start leaving and you start getting in a vulnerable position, we're going to take over your heavy equipment, we're going to use it to run the show ourselves. That's what they said. It's one of those things that you're in the middle of it, you might as well finish it well and not with your tail between your legs. Wendy?
Pat, graphic new warning labels will soon cover packs of cigarettes. Today, the Food and Drug Administration released 9 new labels showing negative health effects of tobacco use. The images will take up the top half of cigarette packages. The same labels will also appear in ads. Among the new warnings released are images of rotting teeth and decaying lungs. Cigarette makers have till the fall of 2012 to comply. Well, you've probably heard at least one story of someone donating a kidney to a loved one. Well, now one Idaho man is going a step further, donating his kidney to a complete stranger. David Hendricks was talking to his pastor after a church service. That's when he says something miraculous happened.
And in the middle of that conversation, for whatever reason, well, the Lord knows the reason, I said to him, hey, by the way, Kurt needs a kidney.
So I asked him, Kurt who? And he's Kurt Davis. And I was like, okay, well, whoever that is.
You know, I had no idea what to say, and I'm still at awe with it. You know, it's just so, I'm still speechless. What can I say?
Wow. Of course, the chance that 2 strangers are a match for an organ donation is very small, but these 2 were. While many are calling it a lucky coincidence, Hendricks says it has nothing to do with luck. He says it was all part of God's plan. Absolutely, Pat.
Beautiful thing. No greater love has this, that a man would lay down his life for his friend. And this is somebody that wasn't even a friend, and he's willing to sacrifice himself. You don't die if you give up a kidney. You have 2 of them, but if your other one goes bad, then, of course, you do die. And so the Lord gave us a spare kidney for a reason. So that's a real sacrificial act.
Virginia Attorney General Ken Cuccinelli is urging pastors to practice their right to speak freely. He told a meeting of 250 clergy they can speak to any issue in America from the pulpit. Cuccinelli says pastors can speak out on issues like gay marriage and abortion without risking their tax-exempt status. He says pastors can be politically active as long as they are careful not to endorse or advocate the defeat of a candidate on behalf of the church. Former Utah Governor Jon Huntsman is officially announcing his run for the Republican presidential nomination. The 51-year-old is described as a high school dropout, Harley-riding diplomat. Like fellow Republican contender Mitt Romney, he is a Mormon. Huntsman served as ambassador to China under President Obama, but he gave up the position to make his bid for the White House. He came in second in a presidential straw poll at the Republican Leadership Conference this past weekend. Well, you can always get the latest from CBN News by going to our website at cbnnews.com.